As Jamie said, I think he put it mildly, that the guys have been working really quite hard over the past few weeks, rolling out remote working solutions for our clients. We've obviously seen a huge surge in that, and everyone's been doing everything they can to get people up and running. So I feel like at the moment, the vast majority of people now have got home working set up of some description. And today really is just to come up and discuss the challenges that have come out of that, and perhaps how we can help to fine tune those solutions. What I was going to do, just to sort of introduce, as there'll be various people on the call running different types of solutions. So I was just going to cover the various ways in which you can configure remote working. So the sort of 4 main ways that will work. And then, of course, we can reference back to those as some of the questions may be specific to one or the other. So the kind of key ways that this would have been configured is a system called RDS, Remote Desktop Services, which is typically where you go on a remote session to typically a server, or sometimes can be through an RD gateway to your work PC. And with that, what you're doing is basically you're kind of remote controlling your server or PC. So all the data typically there would stay in your server estate or in your company IT estate, and whichever endpoint your users have, they're just remote controlling that session. So that's kind of the first key one. VPN as well is very common. So virtual private network is where you would connect in. So typically you have an icon on your desktop or something you would fire up in the morning. That connects you into your corporate network. For the most part, then you're working in a very similar way that you would normally, although very demanding on bandwidth and your firewall and things like that. So VPN is kind of the second one. And the third main way of doing it is through Office 365, which a large amount of customers obviously have. And that's where you'll be accessing your files in OneDrive or SharePoint, and obviously making use of things like Teams and your email. And with that, the lines are a bit blurred depending on how you're doing that, be it through the web apps or whether you're syncing data to your endpoint. There's some sort of blurred lines as to where that data ends up in terms of the client machine, or whether that is remaining in the cloud. So that's kind of the 4 ways that I think working. And yeah, be really interested to hear from people kind of what you have set up and what challenges you're finding, really. Let me know, Isaac, if we've got any questions in the queue as yet.
So no questions in the Q&A as yet. If you'd like to maybe go over some use cases and bits and pieces like that, things that you've experienced personally when doing projects, that'd be fantastic. Any hurdles or anything?
Yeah, well, I suppose the one of the main things we've seen either implemented sort of straight away or occasionally on these things with the recent issues, safe to say there are a few last minute deployments happening, but of course security comes up quite quickly afterwards in terms of when trying to give people remote access and give them productivity tools from home. Obviously you need to balance that with having good security practice in place. So one of the things that we've been deploying to help with that, specifically, I suppose, well, on really all the solutions, but often on the RDS and specifically with Office 365 as well, is the 2-factor authentication, sometimes called multi-factor authentication. And that just means that when people are logging on, so for example, when I log on to our RDS system, it's certification to my, which just goes to ensure that I'm actually the user that's logging on. So I have to approve that on my mobile, and then that allows me access along with my usual email address and password that I would input straight away. So that's one of the things that's very worthy of consideration, and something that, you know, for best practice, we'd recommend looking at putting in place if you don't have that. Otherwise, the risk, of course, is we've just created a wonderful productivity portal to all your line of business applications and all your company data, and then it's secured behind your email address and a single password. So obviously there've been some concerns around security with that type of thing.
Fantastic, thank you for that. We do have a question pop through in the chat from AD Arthur. Actually, they've just said that they're happy to go on. So if I can ask you to unmute, and you can feel free to ask your question.
Hi, yeah, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear. Yeah.
So, brilliant. So we are we're a language school based in Canterbury, and we're very much an on-site organisation. And I've actually only been with the organisation for a couple of weeks. And so we've moved from being very much if you're in the building, you're working, and if you're not in the building, you're not working kind of mentality to everybody working from home. So we have Office 365 kind of set up. So we've got people using SharePoint, and we've got people using Outlook Web or using Outlook or their own mail app. But what I'm not familiar enough with Office 365 particularly with is controlling, preventing people from downloading files and putting data onto kind of their own machines, or they're possibly company machines, but they haven't got controls in place yet because everything had to be sort of rolled out so quickly. So I just wanted any thoughts on that, really, as it's kind of the situation we're in at the moment. It's not ideal.
So
do you want to do that with Jamie, or shall I jump in?
I think if you could do this one, John, that'd be great.
Yeah. So obviously with 365, obviously it's designed, because it's a cloud solution, it's designed to allow access from anywhere, basically. If you want to put restrictions onto that, you basically can use there's add-on functionality in the form of some additional licensing, Azure Premium P1, and it's bundled together in a suite with some other functionality, which is useful acronym EM and S, basically. And what that will allow you to do is to configure some conditional access. So one of the things you could do if you're worried about people downloading data onto unmanaged devices outside your network, you could put a conditional access policy to prevent that, so that data could only be downloaded to managed devices, i.e. corporate devices. It would allow people to access that data via the web apps. So you could use OneDrive or SharePoint online, but it would actually prevent you from downloading the data. And that's one of the things that people do for that. Is that sort of the kind of thing you were looking at, or?
You're on mute there, Dan. I didn't know if you were replying.
Sorry, headset fun as well. Yes. No, I think it was the additional licensing piece that I was kind of looking at. If it's potentially an extra license, then I can look into that.
Yeah. So there's also all sorts of stuff you can configure with the EMS licensing. So you can manage devices. You can get app management. So basically, as well as controlling a device, you can control the app. So it gives the ability to remove data from a device if rather than having to completely wipe a device like you can with a mobile device, you can actually just remove the corporate data. But certainly for one of the sort of the questions coming up with sort of working from home and people having the ability to download company data to unmanaged devices, that conditional access rule where you prevent downloading of data to unmanaged devices is one way of putting a sort of fence on that, really.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
Thanks for your question there, Dan. I will just add to that and say I think you're right, of course, to be concerned about that. And one of the things a lot of our sort of IT manager clients are concerned about is, of course, did they double the size of their IT estate responsibility overnight? You know, if there's 50 users, and now those 50 users are in fact, you know, using their home devices. One of the things we want to be very careful about is not inheriting responsibility for sort of 50 mixed variety of machines in people's houses, and so controlling that download of data to those end user machines absolutely means that you aren't sort of forced to take ownership of those. And as you say, that the concern of a data breach is very real. I mean, those machines, if they decide to replace them, you know, they could be given off to the niece or nephew next month, or sold on eBay, and I'm sure that they wouldn't give a second thought necessarily to clearing off the data in the sort of way that we would with a corporate machine. So yeah, thanks again for your question.
Thank you, Dan, for your question as well. We do have another one come through from Peter Gladish at PS Tax. If I can ask you to unmute, Peter, that'd be fantastic.
Hi guys.
Hi, Peter.
We've been working remotely for years with various different solutions, and we found ADM probably 2 years ago, and we've gone completely 365 based. The whole, everyone's using Surface Pros, just so that it's nice and consistent. And I have to say, it's been an absolutely brilliant experience. We couldn't be happier with the service that we've had from you guys. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you for that. Just noticing recently a little bit of strain, I think. I take it's down to, yeah, it ties in with the last 3 weeks. I take it the internet's being hammered a lot harder than perhaps it used to. I think a lot of my neighbours are working from home now. I've suggested that they don't, but is that a common problem?
I can probably take this one. Yeah, so obviously domestic internet connections are taking more of a hammering than usual, because obviously there's more people in the house during those working from home hours. Also, the services that you're utilising are getting utilised more than ever. I think Microsoft suggested like Teams usage was, I think it was more than 775% higher than usual, and that goes hand in hand with a lot of the other services that support that. So I would expect Microsoft to kind of reply to that demand and build better capabilities in their data centers. But obviously, I don't think even Microsoft ever expected such a quick change in utilization as we've seen now. So I would suggest that it's not a problem with your domestic internet connection. I think it's just everything, the demand on every aspect of connectivity at the moment is higher than ever. And obviously, the longer this goes on, I think the more such companies will be looking into improving their capabilities, really. Does that somewhat answer your question?
Precisely, yeah. Thank you very much.
That's right, no problem. You're not the only person that suggested that, certainly.
Just to quickly answer that, yeah, absolutely, Jamie. That's obviously what we've all experienced the past few weeks, and certainly it's I'm sure been a test for the capacity planning of all the infrastructure and service providers like Microsoft and BT. One of the things we have sort of recommended is to actually out. We were doing a 9 a.m. sort of huddle each morning, which was a group chat on Teams, and that was somewhat disastrous. I was becoming increasingly embarrassed about my home connection, and we found that actually by doing that at 10 or 10:30, which is precisely the reason why we booked this session for 10:30, is that it seems to be a quieter time of day. So it's almost like you know, like rush hour with cars. You know, if you can actually schedule some of those activities around the peak times, then you may find that you know, the strain is a bit less.
I can certainly add there too as well that we've actually seen that a lot of businesses that are using Teams heavily have adapted well to the new sort of working conditions. So being able to see members of staff, whether they're sort of logged in, available, or whether they're away from their desks, and being able to chat with them in Teams channels and in chats has been really, really useful. So it's a good way of like staying in touch, having regular huddles and sharing documents. If you're just relying on email and the phone, it's a lot more difficult, but certainly Teams has been a really good platform. We've seen a real big increase in adoption of it during the last few weeks.
Brilliant. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, no worries at all. We have also got another question has come through. We've got loads coming through now. We've got one from or a couple from Steph. If I could get you to unmute, Steph, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, morning guys. I hope you're all well.
Morning, Steph.
Hi, how you guys doing? All right.
Yeah, we're hanging. We're holding in there. Yeah.
Good, good. Yeah, my question was really not really about working from home, because actually I think we found that we've taken to it a bit too smoothly, I think, in some respects, which we're really grateful for you guys kind of nudging us in that direction, and things have gone pretty well, touch wood, today. Mine was kind of really more about functionality in Teams, and we just wondered if there was any chance of seeing more than 4 people on the screen at any time. Do we know if that functionality will update a bit like Zoom? And secondly, my colleague Paul wondered about tasks in Teams. Obviously, we've heard some good stuff from Microsoft Ignite last year and wondered when that might be coming and what we can expect from it.
Hi, Steph. I'll jump in on that. On the 4 live videos, that is something that's actively being developed at the moment. Yeah, so that is due to come, I believe, in the next few weeks. All Microsoft times are a bit stretchable, and obviously at the moment with everything else going on, yeah, I wouldn't sort of nail a date to the wall. But yeah, no, the talk is that is coming certainly in the next few weeks, or certainly this quarter, is what they're saying. Tasks, again, I must admit I'm not too up on actually what is coming there, but I know that again that is something on the roadmap. So it is a constantly evolving product, as I'm sure you found out in the time that you've been using it. It's a sort of very agile development, and they are sort of adding functionality all the time. I mean, the only thing at the moment, obviously, is as Jamie was saying, that sort of the massive upscaling in the infrastructure is obviously keeping them fairly busy. But the new functionality is coming in thick and fast. So yeah, I can't give you too many details on the tasks, but I know that is on the roadmap, as is the additional video streams.
Good. Did you have another question as well there, Steph?
No, that's it. Thanks, John. I really appreciate your response to that. It's good to know that functionality is coming in. I say it's been quite interesting kind of having 12 of us in a meeting and only seeing 4 faces at any one time, but we seem to be managing okay at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of rotates them. It's supposed to be the 4 people that last spoke, so it's the sort of active speakers. But yeah, as you say, obviously with Zoom, you know, people are seeing, you know, being able to see 20 people in a meeting, and it's kind of functionality that while everybody is working from home, that's quite useful to have. So I think that's fairly high up on their priorities at the moment. So I don't think it'll be too long before that comes out.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steph. We've also got a question from Angela, and I'm going to read this one out. So is conditional access easy to set up if you already have the license? That's the question from Angela.
I'll jump in on that one if you like. Conditional access I think is reasonably straightforward. We've done this often hand in hand with the 2-factor authentication, so it would be worth thinking about if you have the license, Angela, then you would have the ability to use 2-factor authentication and conditional access. So we would often tend to set those two up in tandem. If anything, the two-factor side of it can be heavier to set up because you have to reach out to your end users. But conditional access itself, when we were speaking about blocking the download of files to local machines and things like that, I understand is just some configuration of policies in the back end, basically. So on that occasion, you wouldn't have to reach out to the end users, and it can be done without involving them. So yeah, not a huge undertaking, unless John or Jamie is going to dive in and now correct me on that.
No, it's just like anything, just needs a bit of planning behind it first, and then obviously once we've agreed how we're going to tackle that, then obviously we tackle it accordingly. So you're pretty much spot on there, Richard. Cheers.
Fantastic. I hope that answers your question, Angela. If you do have any others, feel free to pop them in the chat. We've got another question as well from Josie, who's happy to go live as well. So I'll let you unmute, Josie.
Hiya. Yeah, so we're Agile Business. We've only got a small team of about 9. And we're actually in our 5th week now of remote working because we went a little bit early. All gone really well. We do everything on Teams and SharePoint. And to be honest, we're not really having any problems. It's been great for us. But what I'd like to know is, I don't know if it's possible. So as we're all on company laptops, if someone's laptop is stolen, is there a way where the devices can be cleaned sort of from files and logins remotely? Or is that not possible? Sort of thinking ahead if it was to happen.
Absolutely, yeah. Do you know, Josie, if you have Intune configured at all to manage those laptops or any kind of tool like that?
Don't think so. It doesn't sound familiar at all.
Okay. So no, I don't believe with the sort of vanilla functionality you'd be able to completely wipe the laptop in that way. The tool that would allow you to do that and to protect the data is a tool called Microsoft Intune, and that's basically Microsoft's mobile device management software. So that would work with laptops as well as with mobile phones and tablets, and basically allows you to enroll those devices, push out sort of policies to them as well, and then would give you that functionality to be able to do remote wipe.
Okay, do ADM manage that at all? Do you guys do that and put on the machines and help us with it?
Yeah, absolutely, we do. Yeah.
Okay,
we could certainly help there. I'm Agile's account manager actually, so we can certainly look at that, Josie.
Thanks, Matt.
I don't think you've got EM&S and some of those subscriptions in place, but it's certainly
no. I've made a note of that. I'm going to take it to our CEO and just see, because I think security is our main thing at the moment, is just protecting people and protecting our data. I like the idea of that. It's not necessarily for what people are downloading, but it's if somebody was to somehow get hold of our login details, they could easily get onto our SharePoint and we've got everything on there. So I'm definitely going to mention that to him. So I'll have a chat with you later if that's okay.
That'd be great. Yeah, and it's certainly encrypting the device. Removes a lot of a threat, and if that device is lost or misplaced, it really does reduce that risk. So yeah, very happy to talk to you offline and look to get that in place in the next few weeks.
Brilliant, thanks Matt.
I can probably add to that a little bit as well. So just take into account some of the comments that are coming up in the chat as well. So them devices, we should be looking to encrypt those devices so that if they did get stolen, they wouldn't be able to take the hard disk out and kind of get to your data. So if that hasn't, I'm not overly familiar with your configuration there, but it's something that we could utilize, which is a Microsoft product called BitLocker encryption. Basically makes the data inaccessible to someone in such a circumstance. We can also sign out users from that all their devices. So if your laptop got stolen, we can go into your Office 365 tenant and sign you out of any active sessions. That would be your Teams, your OneDrive. Obviously, if you've got a mobile phone, it will sign you out of that, but it just makes sure that they can't authenticate as you anymore. And we usually temporarily disable the account and reset the password on the account as well. So we've got kind of procedures in place that we follow in such circumstances. But in terms of wiping a Windows 10 laptop without that management via something like Intune, wiping that data isn't possible. But if they can't log into the device and the device has been encrypted, that does kind of give you a bit more peace of mind than if you hadn't taken such measures. Peter in the chat has an example of what's happened to him. So maybe it's a good time for him to comment.
Hi there. Yes, yeah. Just to say, I had my phone stolen by a pickpocket. We went to watch the rugby in Paris earlier this year, and we got robbed twice in one day. We lost the rugby, and then my phone was lifted on the metro on the way back to the hotel.
Sounds like a good day out, Peter.
It was a wonderful day out, yeah, it was. Everything was set up on it for security. So it was a quick phone call to you guys on someone else's phone, and yeah, the whole thing was resolved. From a security point of view, anyway. So yeah, it's comforting to have that and to know where our data's quite. We've got the sort of work we do and the clients we do need to take the security very seriously, and that was it was perfect. So thank you again.
Good, thank you for that, Peter. Thank you.
Nice little win story there from Peter. We haven't had any more questions coming through at the moment. I'm just waiting on those coming through. So if you guys would like to touch on anything else at all, or answer any sort of commonly asked questions, that'd be brilliant while I wait for the next one to come through.
John, have we been seeing an increase in use of Teams for calling the last few weeks, especially? Obviously, you obviously get a certain amount of functionality with a basic Teams client, but you can add additional sort of licensing to that. John, would you be able to just cover that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Yes, obviously Teams has got many facets to it. Obviously, probably obviously what we're doing now with the meeting side, the collaboration sides, sharing files and working as a team. But obviously, as you're saying, Matt, obviously it can also act as a phone system. And yeah, obviously a lot of people where they might have an on-premise PBX system have sort of rapidly moved over to Teams so that they can sort of remotely make and receive work calls and communicate not just with other Teams users, but with other landlines, mobile, PSTN lines. So yeah, it's quite a simple process to set that up by adding the calling packages. There's a phone system license and a calling plan, which is all. You can get all bundled together in one business voice package now, and you can also port your numbers directly into Microsoft, so that if you've got a landline system, you can take your existing numbers and put them in Teams. So yeah, I mean that's. I think the overall Teams usage has gone up massively in the last couple of weeks, but yeah, also for the calling functionality as well.
So the entry point to the calling plans has been lowered as well, hasn't it, John? I think the entry point is about 120 minutes a month.
Yeah, so you can either buy the phone system and license and a calling plan, and you can get a fairly small calling plan of 120 minutes. The standard package is 1,200 minutes a month. So if you've got some users who hardly ever make calls but want the ability to have a DDI to make and receive calls, that might work quite well. But the business voice package includes the phone system license, the 1,200 minute calling plan, and the audio conferencing package all in one bundle. The audio conferencing is what gives you the ability for somebody to actually phone into a meeting. So if you schedule a Teams meeting, it gives you the ability to have a dial-in number. So if somebody wants to join it from a standard phone, it gives you that functionality.
More and more countries are set up too in the international plans, aren't they? I think there's a dozen or more countries now that are set up for Teams calling.
Yes, that's it. You can get calling plans. You can get calling plans in more countries now. If the country you're wanting to add into it isn't one that's available to get a Microsoft calling plan, you can use what's called direct routing. So if you've got SIP trunk, which is like a sort of phone connection, you can take that into Teams if you've got a session border controller device. So that's something if you've got a remote office in a country that doesn't support calling plans, that's something we could help you configure.
Brilliant.
I think somebody actually asked a question about connecting Teams to. Where did I see it? Was it somebody?
That was what I was about to ask. It was Andy.
Yeah,
Andy
I was just going to say,
how easy is it to link the PBX to a team?
Yeah, so you can do that via a session border controller. So in the same way that you take a SIP trunk into Teams, you can connect an on-prem PBX system to Teams via the same way, via a session border controller. Not wishing to get too technical, we use a company called Audio Codes that makes these session border controllers. But yeah, so that with a bit of configuration, you can get that connectivity to an on-prem phone system.
Andy, does that answer your question? Feel free to unmute.
Yeah, it's we're struggling a little bit at the moment. We're using soft phones and trying to use it remotely, but struggling to get the system to talk over the VPN properly. It's just it's working, but not great.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as I say, the good thing with Teams is you can buy some if you've got your 365 account and using Teams, you can add some phone system calling plan licenses to it, and you can have that up and running very, very quickly. So if you wanted to do a little trial pilot using Teams alone for calling, that's very easy to do. And obviously, if you're happy with that, you can then move on to, if you want to integrate the on-prem PBX. But it depends. A lot of people will actually just say, right, well, let's go fully to Teams and port the numbers from that PBX into Teams. But yeah, it's
for us,
obviously.
For us, it's all relatively new. We only sort of moved across to Office 365 last month, just as all this was kicking off, and everyone's taken on to Teams massively. Been very helpful, but obviously from a voice stuff coming in from outside, and we're global, we've got stuff coming from all over the world. So it's quite a struggle to match all those things together.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it might be worth looking at just getting a few calling plans in Teams. I mean, you possibly have the ability to forward from your PBX to Teams just in the short term. That's what sometimes people do. That they'll set up a forward to the number, the Microsoft numbers, and then you can port the numbers to Teams. Or if you do actually want to integrate on a longer term basis the PBX, that's where you could look at putting a session border control in and doing some sort of configuration for that. But obviously there's an investment in the SBC. But yeah, there's probably a longer consideration behind that. But it's all possible.
Yeah, I mean, we're not big workers from home. This is a emergency measure, really, which is being fulfilled.
Andy, if some of your clients are using Teams as well, you can always federate with them, so that you could chat with and make a call to a person in the same way that you would internally. So you could just have an IM chat or see when they're live or make a call in that way. And of course, that type of call is free within Teams.
That'd be a discussion we'd have to have with all of our distributors. I mean, we've probably got 100 all over the world, and our clients expand from there. Most of them we never touch base with.
Okay, but then maybe if you just got a lower number that you frequently contact, it might be worth just exploring that potentially.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I hope that answers your question, Andy, as well. We've got one more just before it becomes sort of relevant. We've got another success story from June at PS Tax. If you don't mind unmuting, June.
Yeah, no, that's all good. Thank you. I just wanted to say, because we've been talking about MFA and Intune this morning, to say that PS Tax, we're currently, we've run a pilot for this and we're rolling it out gradually to all of the company. One of our considerations at the beginning was that people were worried that it was going to be intrusive on their working days and their devices and things. I just wanted to say that it really isn't, and it works really well. We work really remotely. Normally we're out and about across the UK, not at the moment, obviously. But it's nice to know when people are outside of their trusted environments that just one swipe and I know that the company data is safe. So I just thought that other people might like to hear, you know, people that are actively using it, and to know that it really isn't intrusive at all. Thank you.
Thank you, June.
Thank you there, June, as well. That's a little touch on the MFA side of things. We are starting to move into sort of the remote desktop side of things. And if I can move over to Ian Hayden, who's got a question, and feel free to unmute Ian if you can.
Yeah, okay. Can everyone hear me? Yeah? Is that good?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Oh,
Yeah.
excellent. Fantastic. First time I've used Teams successfully. Yeah, most of the people here have sort of taken to using 2 screens when they're in the office. I haven't been able to work out how to do that via an RDS communication at home. Is there any way of doing it?
I'll take this one if you like. Yes, so it is possible. In the RDP shortcut on your desktop, there's a tick box to enable you to span it across all the displays. So if you've got 2 displays at your home location, it will show your RDS session across those. You can have apps on both screens. If you've got more than 2 screens, it can become a bit more fun, if I'm honest. You can do it across all screens, but you can't pick and choose maybe 2 of those 3 screens, for example. What we're seeing quite a lot of people do is have their RDS session on one screen, and then like if they're using Teams or Skype, they're using that on their standard, like their laptop screen, if that just because the audio side of things within RDS isn't as capable. So in the RDP properties file, I think if you right click and go to edit, you can just tick a box to say display across all my screens, and then it will just be like how they're working in the home environment. So it might just be worth recreating that RDP file and send it out to the staff that want to do that. I can send a very quick guide on how to do that after this if you like.
Yeah, cheers, Jamie. I wouldn't mind if you could. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Ian, for that question. We haven't had any more pop through yet, so I'll let you go back to sort of discussing any hurdles or success stories or anything, guys, until a question pops through again.
One of the things I wouldn't mind putting out to the group, actually, I had a customer say to me the other day, he thought there'd been a rise in scam emails and things like that coming through actually since the outbreak of the virus, which I thought was interesting. I wasn't sure, to be honest, if that was his perception or if actually other people have seen that. Of course, it raises a concern for your users that will be working from home, as you've sort of taken away that the ability to sort of check over their shoulder with a colleague if they're not sure about an email or something else that has come in. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear from the group if people sort of feel that's perhaps been the case.
So Peter in the chat has just said Barracuda is still doing its job, which is always good to hear. And I know I'll probably get a few more comments on that as well. Feel free to run through that as well, Richard.
Yeah, so Barracuda, obviously we use. Thanks for mentioning that. We use that to filter spam mail and malicious mail. There's a couple of levels to that as well, actually now. So we've got some added functionality we can offer, which will help with sort of targeted attacks. So these are the ones that aren't rather than bulk mail outs. These are sort of attempts to defraud you by actually looking at the company, specifically targeting your company, and often sort of spoofing emails in that appear to come from your MDs and CEOs, often asking for transfers of money. So yeah, certainly that's the measure that we recommend to protect against that. I think Jamie almost also mentioned, it might have been yesterday actually, Jamie, about the OpenDNS filtering to protect machines as well off the network.
Yeah, so obviously the Barracuda side of things does the incoming mail. Obviously, it's never going to catch everything, but it certainly stops a lot of things happening. So what we would also like people to start considering is DNS protection on their endpoints that aren't in the aren't in the business offices. So DNS protection such as OpenDNS, which is a service we offer, and probably a few people in this chat have got it already. It kind of sits there behind the scenes and just makes sure that your endpoints don't go out to any dangerous addresses. When your device is in the office, the firewall kind of routes that traffic to the correct location. But when it's out of the office, it does rely on a client application to be running in the background on the workstation. So that means that no matter what internet connection somebody's connected to, whether they're tethering off a phone, whether in the public hotspot, there is an extra layer of protection there, and that can stop some of the most of the ransomware type infections. So certainly with devices that are working behind domestic firewalls now is something that's worth considering, and potentially if you wanted to discuss this further, it's probably best off talking on a one-on-one basis in regards to this. So if anyone wants to leave a comment, maybe we can the account manager's going to reach out to them one by one if they're interested in this.
Brilliant. And there's also just in sort of response to Richard there as well, there seems to be quite a mix of answers here. I mean, we've got Steph and Angela, who have definitely seen an increase of spam being blocked by the system and Barracuda working. And then you've also got John and Ian, who haven't really seen much increase in the levels. John says they use Barracuda also, and users just forward any suspicious mail to him to review. So that's quite an interesting point as well there.
It's worth also thinking about training as well for staff and what they should and shouldn't do with emails. Obviously, you don't want to just follow links regardless. You know, there are a lot of tips around hovering over the email address that's been sent and seeing what the true address is behind it. You know, looking at sort of time of day that the email's been sent and the language used, that type of thing. We in fact have many of our clients have our security awareness testing and training service in place, which basically provides online training videos on what you should look for and what you should and shouldn't do with when you receive emails. So if you've got staff sitting at home, furloughed or working from home, it can be an ideal time for them to sit some of these training videos. Yeah, very happy to talk to you about that, and that all forms part of our security onion recommendations that we make for businesses.
Thank you, Matt. I will tail on to that actually, as you mentioned, obviously security awareness training. I'm not sure if any of you were on. We had an event earlier in the week, which was training delivered by Alex Waterton, who's at F-Keys, which is our training partner. I understand that was very well attended, and it was training on Microsoft Office applications, so Word and Excel, those types of things. And it did raise the question, I suppose, about training. So yeah, we understand that furlough staff, whilst they're not able to work, they are able to complete training. So that's something that you might like to consider. I think we might be doing some future sessions on that. But again, if you did want some user training whilst you've got staff working remotely or potentially furloughed, then do have a chat, and we have some offerings for that as well.
So brilliant. Just a quick one as well. We've got Angela, who said we've taken your service and training and it works. It's brilliant. We've also got John saying Sophos and OpenDNS also seem to make it nigh on impossible for me to get anything bad in an email.
That's good feedback. Thank you.
And I can see our managing director Adrian as well has just commented in the chat if there's anything more we can do to help you in the chat and everything. So feel free to respond to that one, and we can maybe have you live on the Q&A as well. So if I pass back over to Jamie, Matt, Richard, and John as well, just to sort of touch on anything more that you'd like to sort of finish off with.
see from a client perspective if anyone's proactively creating like a working from home policy document that they're sending out to all staff, and if that's adjusted with obviously COVID-19 in mind. I don't know if there's anyone that's got any experience with doing that for their company, and any tough questions they faced when they're creating that document. If anyone has anything to say on that, maybe just put a comment in the meeting chat.
Brilliant. We'll wait for those to come through. Thank you, Jamie.
I can briefly cover one thing that's come up whilst we're waiting, for which the answer is, I suppose, fairly obvious, but we have seen some people, obviously in our client base, we've got a mix of people that are using online backup. We're probably close to 50-50 now, I would have thought, actually, if not perhaps more, that are online. So people have online or cloud backups. Some people still have traditional backups where they'll be changing tapes or more likely hard disks in the office. So that's one challenge that has come up a couple of times in the past week, is, you know, what do we do about the backups now that no one's actually attending the office? And so it's a valid question, but the answer is obviously there to go and move that to a cloud backup. So we have had some people that have dropped to doing the backup. They're sending someone to the office perhaps twice a week to do that, which may be okay depending on your rate of data expansion, but we'd always recommend a nightly backup to be taken. So ideally you've either got someone traveling to the office each day to change the drives as normal, or of course take the opportunity to move to a cloud backup if you don't have that already.
Yeah, we just had one of our clients actually sign off on moving across from rotated USB media backups to ADM's data center, and the sole reason that any staff member was going to the office was for the backup tapes. They weren't backup discs, sorry, they weren't doing it for any other reason, and they were very concerned about whether the lockdown would be enhanced by the government, and obviously if they couldn't get to that server to swap out those discs, what the implications could be for their business. So that they took that to the directors and they got sign off quite quickly, and to be honest with you, it's a better solution as well. So there's less reliance on a USB disk being plugged in correctly, or USB disk being in good health, or a staff member to remembering to rotate those backups. Yeah, so there's a lot of peace of mind as well. Was obviously the access not being a consideration any further.
Fantastic, thank you guys. I think we got one more. Yeah, brilliant. Peter just said it's a worthwhile session. That's good to hear. So everyone sort of who's in the meeting still, we will be looking to rerun this in the future as well if people think of any questions after the session, and people can also always get in touch with us directly, of course. We've just had one more comment come through. Yeah, so Steph, did you want to unmute?
Yeah, sure, thank you. No, I was just going to go back to Jamie's question and say that we haven't really put a policy in place as such. However, we're using Teams to kind of facilitate regular communication between our staff, probably much like everyone else is. We've kind of instigated a compulsory morning video chat where everybody kind of jumps on and, you know, just has a quick morning. How is everyone? Because we obviously have to resource individual projects, being quantity surveyors in construction. We work on individual projects as teams, so we are constantly working out who's doing what. So that morning call really helps kind of get everyone together, discuss what's happening through the day, and then we have a kind of a non-compulsory afternoon. We call it the afternoon tea break, where we're kind of just hopping on and having more social chat. We found this kind of has worked to an extent, but it's getting a little bit kind of tedious, I guess. People are kind of just jumping on for the sake of it. I just wondered if you guys had any thoughts on, you know, you guys have been using this for a while and video conferencing a lot as much as we are. Have you had any thoughts on how we can keep our staff engaged and kind of facilitate that culture? You know, for me, it's really important that we kind of keep that going. We're a small team, and if we lose that, it can be a bit of a problem. So I would welcome your thoughts on that.
I'll take this one if you like. So obviously we've been using, we was originally using Skype, and then obviously as soon as Team comes out, we adopted it quite well. And to be honest with you, if you took it away from us now, it'd have a massive impact on how we work day to day, both in the office and now we're finding remotely. In this service department side of things, we have broken down our engineers into multiple teams. So I'm the team leader for a team of around about 8 or 9 of those engineers. So we are communicating. We're suggesting that people over communicate within the Teams channel, so everyone knows what everyone's doing. Everyone's kind of aware of everything, because we don't just want people sitting there churning through tickets, getting stuck into work without that kind of usual communication across the team members. So we're having multiple weekly meetings. I call in a few times a week to different staff members, because obviously I think obviously mental health and things is something to consider in this case. So some people that will be working from home by themselves without any family members or friends around. So it's good to have a bit of communication. In regards to promoting, I like the afternoon tea break idea you have. That's very similar to what we're doing with our team meetings. We're just kind of stopping action in tickets for maybe just a 15-minute spell, discussing kind of trends in tickets, discussing what we should be thinking of, because obviously we had a bit of a two-phase approach to this remote working. Initially it was just to get absolutely everyone remote working as soon as possible, because obviously it seemed like it was just going to be a short-lived thing and everyone will be back to normal soon after. Then when the government then announced that this will be going on longer, we then thought to ourselves, we need a bit of a phase 2. Right, we've got you working remotely, but now we need to really look into how we're going to do this in a secure manner long term, and how it's going to be managed from both the customer point of view and from us, from our point of view, and getting the right recommendations in early. Steph, I think obviously given everything that Betteridge and Wilson invested in over the past few years, you was ahead of the curve for this, so that's why the impact's been quite small for you. But other clients, we've had to kind of push other opportunities their way in regards to how they can remote work in a better way. Going back to the speaking to all your staff on a regular basis, I think regular meetings, and maybe I know you're quite a small team, but maybe if you have sub teams and you have regular conversations across those sub teams, I think that will help. But obviously everyone reacts differently. Some people just work alone without much issue, really. I know it wasn't really like a yes or no question, but that's just my comments on how we did it internally. So
this is brilliant, and I'm sure Richard will have something to say on this in a minute. I just wanted to point out, we do. June has said we have a once a week ladies' coffee break with no work, and a Friday night after work drink session. Both have been great success so far, and they wanted to keep team morale up. Seems to be working so far, and I think we should maybe adopt that Friday night after work drink session ourselves. What do you think, Richard?
Yeah, well, Good Friday tomorrow, so I'm not going to wait till after work. I'm not sure about you, Isaac, but yeah. So we've been doing similar things as Jamie mentioned. My team have been having a huddle at 10 o'clock, which is sort of part business and part chat. What I would say is be a bit creative if you find it's tailing off. So we had a fancy dress one, I think, the other week, which is obviously, the fancy dress over the Teams format is pretty phenomenal. To be honest, it's very easy to do. And we've got a dad joke one, I think, this afternoon. So everyone's preparing jokes. So just perhaps adding a bit of something to it might just invigorate that a little bit. And yeah, we have been doing we haven't had quite had the after work beers, have we, as yet? But I had lunch with Josh actually yesterday, so we both ordered we normally go to Kentucky at least twice a week, and so morning that, since it's closed. But we both ordered takeaway yesterday lunch and sat for half an hour with the webcams on and had a chat, the same sort of thing you would do as per normal. So I would say really try as best you can to encourage that type of thing, and for people just to drop in on one another. I mean, you chat, don't you? If you go into the kitchen to make a cup of tea and a colleague's there, you're going to stand and have that chat in your working day. So, encourage people to do it, and of course not to feel guilty for just ringing up for a chat when you're on work time, because it's all part of the working day anyway. It keeps you close to normal, really. So yeah, a few ideas for you there.
Fantastic. I think that about wraps it up with the Q&A session. Some good questions in there as well. And as I said earlier, if you do have any questions that that come to you after this session, feel free to email them over and we'll try and get them answered. We may do a rerun of this session as it's gone quite well, and we'll let you all know if we do. So thank you everyone again for joining. I'll let the guys say goodbye as well. And yeah, thank you from me.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
Stay safe.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers. Thank